Cool. Happy Friday, everyone. My name is Coach Leah. I'm one of the head coaches here at Mamba. I've been working with Dylan for quite some time now, and we thought it was actually about time we got Dylan on board and actually interviewed the mastermind behind the Mamba method, and just get him here to inspire you guys out there that are not only watching this live but also on replay. And yeah, really excited to deep dive today with Dylan around the Mamba method, where he actually came from. I think it's a great way to start with Dylan today. You know, what actually led him through his journey as a coach, and now why he's able to help more coaches in the arena of actually growing their own business, which is super exciting. So welcome on board, Dylan, to your own little podcast interview today. I'm super excited to do this with you. I know that it's been a pleasure working with you so far. You know, you've got nothing but everything to give everyone all the time. And I just wanted to say on behalf of everyone here at Mamba, like, we really do, you know, love the things that you're doing for all of us and helping us grow our business. So let's jump into it, hey? Let's hit you with some hard questions for today, Mr. Dylan Fowler. So let's have a talk about, you know, your journey. What actually got you into coaching to actually begin with? I'd love to hear about that, and I know a lot of coaches out here would love to hear number one, what actually got you into coaching, and then what did that journey actually look like for you over the last few years? How did that actually evolve?
Yeah, cool, mate. So first of all, thanks, Leah, for having me on. Pretty nervous, actually. I was like, this is quite scary. It's always funny when you're on the other side of these things. But yeah, no, so I guess my coaching journey, and this is something that's been really cool to look back on over the years. I actually opened my first gym when I was about 16, of all things. And I didn't really think much about it until I looked back on it. And so we actually had my garage, and I bought a heap of equipment like boxing bags, some weights, and then I would charge like my mates and stuff $2 to come and use it. And so we sort of had this little gym, and I was like, you know, making no money at all, but it was just good fun, and we sort of just beat each other up, which was quite fun for the time. And I guess that was sort of where I started to fall in love with fitness, you know, like, you know, at the time I was a teenage boy and, you know, wanting to put on some, like, just get fit, basically. In New Zealand, I never really did it for an aesthetic purpose. I probably did in a way without really realizing it, but I just like fitness. I like being, you know, being able to be fit and do cool stuff with my body. And then, yeah, I sort of was a bit of a troubled youth. Did a heap of jobs, heap of different things. Straight out of high school, I sort of went to the meatworks. So that was my first job. And I did that because my teacher, she said to me, she's like, oh, Dylan, you're like the smartest kid in this whole entire school. But the way you're going to end up at the meatworks making $500 a week. And I was like, fuck, that sounds awesome. I've got no money. I'm going to the meatworks. So I went to the meatworks, and yeah, that was my first job. And it was sort of my rugby coach actually at the time got me a job there. So I sort of done that. And then anyway, done a heap of like laboring jobs and that for a long time. And then when I was about 18, my old man actually, he said to me, he's like, oh, do you want a job out in the shearing sheds for, you know, the school holidays or the holidays at the time? And it was about $18 an hour, which at the time, that was like, you were bowling in New Zealand. That was really good money. So I did that. And then all of a sudden I had a job that just felt like playing rugby every single day, you know, and at the time I was still playing rugby. I was still, you know, doing stuff like that. And I just really fell in love with that job because it was just like being paid to play a sport. It was very good. And then I started getting into my sharing career, and I started to share, and then I got an injury, and that sort of threw me off a bit because I was sort of like, oh, what's going on here? You know, I sort of had to take a little bit of time off work. And I was like, well, what can I do on the side? And so I actually signed up for a couple of courses. One was a mechanics course. And so I'd done this mechanics course. At the time, I'd actually broken my ankle, so I couldn't share sheep of all things. And I'd done this mechanics course, and I thought I was going to be into Fast and the Furious, you know? I was like, I'm going to make body kits. I'm going to like work with all these cool cars. And then I found out basically what a mechanic was you plugged in a switch, you plugged it into a computer, it told you what was wrong with it, and then the computer fixed it, which was pretty boring. And I was like, well, I don't think this is what I want. And so anyway, I sort of went back to, I ended up going back to shearing of all things. And I had all this time off. Just before I broke my ankle, I actually won a national championship in one of the lower grades in shearing. And I was like really starting to do very well. And then broke my ankle. I was like, I'm never going to be able to shear again. Sort of my life was ruined. And then I came back to shearing, and a month later, I got told about the Golden Shears, which is actually the biggest shearing competition in the world. And me being me, looking back on it now, it makes sense. But at the time, it made sense to no one. I actually just signed up for it. I was like, I'm going to go give it a crack. All my workmates, all of the old guys were like, mate, you're wasting your time. Why would you go do that? Why not just work? And I went up there. I actually made the final out of about 150 people. Made the top 6 out of this, essentially the world shearing competition, and sort of one of the lower grades. And that was something that made me realize, like listening to old guys and listening to people tell you what to do might not be the best thing, because you might often miss out on opportunities. And probably I didn't realize at the time what that lesson was. And so soon after that, I signed up for a personal training course. And I was like, I did it because I wanted to get fitter at shearing. That was actually my goal. I wanted to become a world record holder in shearing. And I wanted to be one of the very best. And so I started a personal training course, and I had to drive to Christchurch, which was about a 2-hour drive from where I grew up and where I was living. And now living in Australia, a 2-hour drive is nothing. But at the time, you might as well have been driving to Australia, because it seemed like a bloody long way. And so I did that. I was about 21 or so at the time, and I was really getting into it. And then my boss said to me, he's like, boy, you're wasting your time with this. You're just going to be a good shearer. And I was like, I basically completed the cert. And I was like, you know what? I think you're right. And then I just basically carried on shearing, and I got pretty good at shearing, got to some pretty high level stuff with it. And then I was just cruising around. This is probably about 5 years into it, starting to do all right. And I got the opportunity to come to Australia. And so I came over to Australia, and I was basically shearing over here. The first week I got here, I made really, really good money. I worked half as hard, and I realized all the ladies were a lot more pretty than back home in New Zealand. And so I was like, I'm never going home. This place is paradise. And so I was really enjoying it. But my body was absolutely rooted. So my body was breaking down on me. And essentially, if you don't have your body going the way it should, you don't make money shearing sheep. So that was sort of the start of the end. And the final straw for that was I went over to a place called Kangaroo Island, which is over in South Australia. Absolutely amazing, beautiful place. And we were having a party shearing one night. And I woke up the next morning, and I just remember looking around, and I was like, are these the people we want to be in 10 years time from now? And the answer was a no. Basically that day I said to my boss, look, I think I'm going to go do something else. And so basically that day I put my shearing bucket up for sale, almost threw it in the ocean, because I was like, look, you just got to burn the boats. You got to get this done. Went over to a mate's in Adelaide, stayed there, applied for some jobs at Good Life, and my qualifications didn't hold up, my PT certs. So nothing came about. And then basically I had about $1,000 in the bank, and I was waiting for my final pay from my shearing. And I was hassling this farmer for it, because it was about $2,000 or $3,000. And he said, oh, no, mate, you gave me the wrong bank account. It's already been paid. And so essentially he got out of paying me. And so I was pretty broke. I couldn't actually get any work. And I was trying to get any job I could, and there was just no work. No one was giving me a job. Couldn't get a job at Good Life or anything like that. And then I seen a little ad in the paper, which was to get into sports marketing, which was down in Melbourne. And this ad said, hey, come and promote these sports teams, make good money for them. You'll be part of this amazing organization. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm in. And so I drove down to Melbourne and went to one of my very best friends, actually. I was his best man at his wedding, and stayed with him on his couch. And we had some good times in Melbourne. I started to fall in love with the place. And this job I signed up for actually turned out to be, it was a face-to-face fundraising company. So street fundraising or mall fundraising. And I was one of those annoying guys in the mall signing you up to charities. but I loved it because I was doing a good thing for the world. And so that was that. And it was actually funny because last time I was down in Melbourne with Jimmy, we were sort of talking and we walked past this McDonald's and I said, bro, you know what? I applied for a job at that place because I was fucking broke and they turned me down. And so at that point, sort of in Melbourne, I wasn't doing too well. I was sort of pretty broke and I was like, what am I going to do? And then I got this commission only sales job. And I was lucky that I was just somehow made it work. You know, I somehow made enough sales to sort of get by. Ended up doing really well, became a team manager. Then eventually my manager comes in and goes, oh, would you like to open an office for us in Brisbane? And I was like, oh, nah, I actually like Melbourne. Like, I've never seen so many pretty girls in my life. I love this place, you know, it was amazing. And, but my manager comes into me, and this is something that was probably a turning point for me. And she said, you know what, Dylan? The opportunity you've got right here, like if you went to work in the bank for 10 years, you'd have to bust your ass to work your way up the corporate ladder. And I know Leah will be relating to this, to get anywhere near what the opportunity you're going, essentially becoming a manager, opening your own office or your own branch and running a team. And I sort of thought about that because at the time we had this really cool apartment on Spencer Street, you know, we're sort of partying a little bit, having a really good time. And right then and there, I was like, you know what, you're right. And so I went down to Brisbane, opened up a sales office, which was pretty cool. And I started doing a little bit of PT and stuff like in parks and stuff like that. But I ran the sales office for about 18 months and we ended up with the #1 sales office in Australia, which was pretty cool for that company. Ran a team that we sort of drove around Queensland. We had the #1, you know, team, that sort of thing. Had about 12, 13 staff, I think, at the time. Basically, it was just a good time, eh? It was just a party, which was very fun. But, you know, like if you've ever had the chance to do that for a job, you just get rejected every day. You basically get abused. But, you know, because you're doing it for a charity, you realize like, hey, it's worthwhile being out here just, you know, getting basically rejected all day. So it was a really good job. But at that time, it just started to bubble up again. It was like, is this what I want to do? And it came back, and it often does come back to me as the resounding answer of definitely not, you know. And I was like, so what is it? And I remember at the time, and the mother of my son I was with at the time was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to just open a gym, you know. And that's what I wanted to do because I was really into CrossFit at the time. I was doing a bit of CrossFit and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, cool. How can we do this? So I ended up going to work at Good Life as a sales rep there. We took the lowest performing club in Queensland to the top 3, which was pretty cool because of the sales improvements. But then I still couldn't get into PT because I didn't have any certs. So that was a bit of a pain in the ass. So I went and done my cert 3 and 4. And then I was like, okay, I want to open a gym. And I was like, it's going to cost about 20 grand. So we ended up going sharing once again. So we drove to Western Australia, saddled up my sharing bucket, and I was like, I'll give the sharing one more crack because I knew like I could save 20 grand over a season. And that was about four or so months. So I could save about 20 grand. I was like, that'll be enough to open a gym. Thinking back on that now, it's actually a stupid idea. But anyway, sort of about a month into this, like I was in excruciating pain basically the whole time. My back was sore, my hips were out. It was just a hard time. And all of a sudden my back came good one day. I was like, oh, finally, it's starting to come good. And so I had a really good day at work, went back to work the next day, picked up my first sheep. I was like, oh, it doesn't feel too good. Second sheep, my back completely seized up, completely locked up, and I couldn't walk. I was absolutely fucked. My back was cooked. And basically I tried to carry on and I was like, look, I'm just going to have to go home. And then I basically couldn't walk properly for about two or so weeks after that. And I was like, look, I think I'm going to have to do something else, you know? So ended up doing that. I ran another sales company there in Perth for a little while. And then I ended up moving back to Brisbane. And that was when I we got into, I was like, bugger it, we'll just open up. I started PT in the parks. So I started running boot camps, stuff like that. The way I advertised it was I went into Gumtree and checked out every person that was looking for a personal trainer. I rang them every single day. I put flyers around in parks and stuff like that. And I think I built up probably 5 or 6 clients, over about probably, I don't know, maybe 3 to 6 months. So I wasn't going anywhere really. But then we started to get a few more clients. Like I started getting a couple of referrals, and I had a little gym set up in my garage at home. And at the time, I was starting to do some CrossFit coaching as well. So my CrossFit gym, they sort of asked me to coach some CrossFit classes, which was pretty cool. Starting to get the hang of it. And all of a sudden, had a breakup with my partner at the time. We decided we weren't for each other, booted me out essentially. And then what happened after that was I couldn't get access to, my equipment. I basically couldn't train my clients. I had to move into a share house, and I was in the shit really. Like I was starting to run out of money very, very quickly. Didn't have anything else really to back me up, and I was finding it really hard. And so it's actually really interesting, as come to think about it, is right at that time I called my dad up at the time, and I was like, Dad, I think I want to come back home. I think I want to go back to New Zealand. And it sort of gives me goosebumps. But like my dad at the time was like, oh, you know what, boy, like I can't really afford to get you home, so you're going to have to figure it out. It's the best thing he ever said to me. Best fucking thing he ever said to me, because yeah, we figured it out, which is good. And I think of all the lessons I probably got from my dad, that was, looking back on it, the one that's made the most impact on me. And so at that time, I sort of went into, I went and worked in a bar, ended up managing or head chefing a kitchen, which was fucking weird because I'd never worked in a kitchen before, and I ended up this head chef, or they were calling me a head chef. Worked in a bar, and then I applied. There was a 24-hour CrossFit gym that opened up around the corner. So I started training there, and I just got to know the owner, the coaches there, and they actually said, oh, any chance you want to do some coaching? And so I was like, yes. And so started doing a few hours there, and that led into basically probably the nicest gym here in Brisbane. One of the absolute nicest facilities, and I got around some good people, and it sort of, that completely changed, I reckon, the direction of my career as a coach, because at the time I was just purely a CrossFitter. I was like, CrossFit's the only way. Go hard, train 3 hours a day, fucking smash yourself to bits, and like just try to beat the clock. And it was like awesome. And then went to this gym. They're a Poliquin-based gym, so they had a lot of different stuff, like using a lot of bodybuilding, a lot of structural balance, a lot of holistic sort of approaches. And then I also met a guy named Keegan Smith, and so Keegan became a massive influence over me on the next few years, and he sort of invited me down to a big gym in Sydney called Clean Shred. And I think this event, I didn't really have much money, but it was about, I don't know, a couple grand, and I had to go down there for a week, and I was like, I can't afford this, but I know I got to go. And so I ended up down in Sydney. And if anyone's ever been to Clean Shred up in Castle Hill, that place is fucking incredible. And I just remember going into this gym, and I'm like, what is this? It sort of blew my mind. And I was like, I never imagined a gym like this could exist. Like, even down to the details on the toilet doors, they had little weightlifters, like a female and a male weightlifter. And I was like, that is very, very cool. And it was just all of these little details and these little things. And at that course, Keegan asked us, like, what is it that you want to do with your life? And basically, what is it, the impact that you want to have? It was really interesting. And this is where I started to look at Share Fitness and all the stuff I could do there. And Keegan's like, you know what, man, that's $1 million business sitting right there. And I should have listened to him, because I didn't really start working on it for a few years. And I didn't know how to. I didn't have the confidence. I really didn't realize what I had there. And I also wrote down a few people that I wanted to work with. I wrote down that I wanted to do some training camps around Australia. I also wrote down I wanted to open a gym in New Zealand, in Queenstown. And basically all of those goals, I've done every single one of them except for open that gym in Queenstown in New Zealand, which is sort of annoying me and might happen at some point. But it's one of those things. And so it was really, really crazy. And Keegan, just in that one moment, just making me think bigger. And I sort of never thought of opening a gym. And he's like, why not? He's like, why not? Why not have a crack? And basically I went back to the commercial space I was working in, and I started to get frustrated because I felt like they were trying to put me into a box, or, the growth just wasn't where I wanted to be. And I was like, I'm starting to outgrow it. And so I remember doing the CrossFit Open one year. It's a good photo, and I know the exact thing I was thinking in that exact photo, of me and Hunter's mum is actually counting my reps, and I'm just in there, and it looks like I'm just doing the workout, just a blank stare on my face. And I know the exact thought I had. It was like, my boss is a fuckwit and I'm starting to hate what I do. And now looking back on it, I know my boss isn't a fuckwit, and it's like, it was only my frustration, but I was like, he's starting to make me hate my job, which is something that I love and something that I've worked so hard for so long. And it just so happened that day, a little ad popped up on Facebook. It's like, would you like to take over a gym space in West End in Brisbane? And where I was working at that time was Newstead, which is inner city Brisbane. And there's a gym on every single corner. It's highly, highly saturated. And I was like, I never want to open a gym. This looks like the most difficult thing to do. And so anyway, we went and looked at this space, and it turned out that the rent in it was only about $100 or so more than what I was paying for rent as a current PT at this gym. So I was like, you know what, this might be the go, And so basically what I did is like, okay, let's give it a go. And I worked out, hey, this is what I sort of want to put in there. We had a budget of about $5,000 to open this gym, which, if you know anything about opening gyms, that's fucking ridiculous. And so we opened this gym, and I think in the end, it probably cost about $10,000, but we had about 3 squat racks up against the wall. We had 1 assault bike and 1 rower. And so we opened this gym. I knew nothing about marketing, and I hired a marketing coach at the time. And he's like, what you got to do, man, is run a Facebook ad that basically is giving away a free program. And so we did that, and that got us probably our first 10 clients, which is pretty good. At the time, my methods and stuff changed. And over the 6 years that we had that gym, it just completely changed. Every aspect. That it made me realize, like, my ego was massively inflated when I was working at that commercial gym, because essentially, like, we're working in the best gym in Brisbane. We had the best coaches. I felt like I was one of the best coaches, and I thought I knew some stuff, but I didn't know a fucking thing, which is a very, very good place to be later on down the track. But anyway, that's how I sort of got into fitness. That's
awesome. That's okay. That's really cool. It's really interesting. There's actually some facets of that journey that I think a lot of us coaches out there can relate to. And one of the ones I wanted to kind of circle back around with you, Dylan, was the fact that you had that conversation about almost wanting to give up, right? That trait of wanting to give up a few times in that journey that you've had. Like, you've gone through a fair amount of different kind of jobs and employment, and I can see that moment of time of wanting to give up. And then one of the biggest conversations that you had with your dad was like, you're just going to have to figure it out. What do you think, though, if you were to look back, what were the traits now that you can say that you've happily walked away with the journey that you've gone through? And what are some traits that you think that some coaches in this day and age also need to take account for as well?
Probably the biggest one, and that's the lesson from my dad, is like, figure it out, and probably the biggest thing is the one question I keep asking myself is this something you want to do? And if it's not a resounding yes, don't do it. Just don't do it. And then if you are going to do it fucking well. That's probably the biggest one.
That's really cool. I really love that attitude as well. I think that tends to show through with obviously the growth of Mamba, right? And where you started with Mamba and how you got there. Let's have a little bit of a deep dive around like what then got you from being a gym owner, right? Growing this massive online presence, creating that sheer method now into actually coaching coaches to do the same, right? What got you into that?
Yeah, cool. Well, it was sort of, I guess, probably like, everyone that comes through Mamba, like I had a problem. And so with my gym, I was getting to the point where sort of about 3 or so years in, this would have been late 2019, and I was just starting to get worn out. I was just starting to get tired, and I was like, I'm putting so much effort in. I felt like, every day I was essentially filling others' cups, and mine was just slowly depleting. And that's what happens. I sort of reflected back on it. The first year of opening a gym, you're just enthusiastic. So you bluff your way through it. The second year, you're like, cool, we're in this, we're doing all right, we're going through. And then the third year, you start to, if you haven't made much progress, it starts to wear you down. And so anyway, it was about late 2019. And at the time, I didn't actually realize I was probably a bit depressed at the time. I was starting to come home, and I was going to the bottle store after work. I don't drink. And so I'd have a couple of drinks just to chill out and try to escape. And so I was sort of having a couple of beers one night. It's interesting. A couple of beers often lead to interesting places. And I was just looking through Facebook, and up pops this ad. And it was like, oh, we'll do your marketing for 28 days for free. If you don't make anything back, you don't pay us anything. And I was like, oh, look, this is about the 14th one I've done this year. Bugger it. I'll give it one more chance. And so click the ad. I think the next day, a man named Jimmy gives me a call. And he's like, hey, bro, how's it going? And so I jumped on this call. And so Jimmy's like, hey, man, what we'll do, we'll run your ads for 30 days. You don't have to pay me anything. We'll get you this many leads. If it works, man, we'll carry on. This is what it costs afterwards. But if it doesn't, we don't pay. And so all I did was pay the ad spend. And so for the first time in my gym, and so for reference, my gym is a bunker. It's under the ground. There's no street signage. We've probably been open 6 years now. We've probably had about 5 people walk in the whole time. So it just doesn't happen. So anyway, that was the first time in the 3 years that we had consistent growth every single week. And so we got to the point where we'd gone from probably about 30 or 40 members, roughly around there, to just before the pandemic, we got up to about 70 members. And this was, our gym was going really well, and it was pretty much at capacity because we were probably the highest price point in our area. So got to about that. Things are going really well. I'm still fucking tired because I'm doing all of the work. And then all of a sudden, we got shut down. We got locked down. So that happened. And, at the time, it was like, it was just probably very, very lucky that, I'd started to work with Jimmy quite a lot. And I started to realize, I was like, what do I do, man? And he's like, hey, man, well, one of my mates, he's an online coach. Go and check out what he's doing. And so I checked out that. It was $4,500. I didn't have any money. Like, we were sort of like, with the pandemic and stuff. And I was like, what am I going to do? And then, so it was $4,500 for 1 month to launch an online program. And I was like, shit, I don't have the money, but I don't have much choice. And so what happened is I jumped on this program. All it was a 15-minute call once per week. And I got a script, one little script. It was a launch script. Just so you know, the script is in Mamba, and it cost me $4,500, and it's yours for whatever you get it for. But anyway, I jumped on that, and that $4,500, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do everything this guy tells me, and that's what I did. For 30 days, I absolutely busted my ass. And I also jumped on another guy's course, learned a lot of systems. That's sort of where I learned, a lot of the back end stuff. And I basically learned everything I could within, the 4 to 6 weeks that we had lockdowns. But more importantly, I applied it all. And then all of a sudden, I went from having to basically think about leaving the industry and just so I could feed my family, to now, I've launched this online business. We had about 30 odd clients within about 6 weeks, which was cool. To thinking, oh shit, there might be something to this. And so what sort of happened is the lockdowns were good because it got me to sit down and think, hey, cool, do I still want my gym? And the only reason I still have my gyms now is for the same question I asked myself then, is this something you still want to do? Answer was a big fat yes. I was so proud of what we created. And to me, as Kobe says, job's not finished, we're not finished. We're not done. There's still work to do. And so I kept it going, but I was like, I can't do it the way I'm doing it. I'm burnt out. I feel fucking tired all the time. My girlfriend dumped me. Life was pretty shit outside of work. So that's when I actually reached out to my new lovely partner, Jess, and hired her as a coach, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, and so she ended up coming on as a coach. I basically, from there, because of the 30, 40 clients I had online, I paid myself a salary out of that. And then I just basically started to get Jess to essentially manage and take over a lot of the classes at the gym. Over about 6 months, we grew 100 online clients. And I remember sending messages to Jimmy, and I was like, bro, I fucking signed up 10 clients this week. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I signed up 10 online clients this week. He's like, oh, what are you doing, man? And he started asking me, he's like, what are you actually doing? And he's like, oh, well, this is what I'm doing. And he's like, well, do you think you can teach this? And I was like, yeah, man, I'll give it a crack. And so jumped on one of the Inner Circle lives one time, started talking about this, done a couple of like lives here and there, and then we started to make it a regular thing. And I never, ever expected to be a business coach, and I never actually thought it'd be something I'd do. Now it sort of makes sense because I've done things the hard way. I've had to do things the hard way, and I've learned a lot of lessons through it. And yeah, that was sort of to answer that question, Leah, was that's how I sort of got into the business coaching. And, after that, started to help out a few people. And then that sort of led to the birth of Mamba, which was pretty cool.
That is really cool. That's a really cool story. The fact that you went from like the whole mindset about like $4,000, right, for 30 days worth of coaching, don't have the money, you didn't have much choice behind you other than that unwavering kind of relentless attitude to actually make things work, make things happen. I think that's one of the biggest traits that I see from you, right, with the journey that you've taken from where you've been as a 16-year-old until today, running something quite special and phenomenal for other coaches as well. What do you think, though, with other coaches in the health and fitness industry? Let's have a talk about, what do you see the main challenges that are being faced at this present time with coaches, and how do you actually help people overcome those challenges?
Well, it's always the same stuff. We see the same stuff over and over again. It's like, one, we don't feel heard. It's like, we know we're good at what we do. We know we care for people, but we can't be heard, and we can't get our voice out to reach the people we want to help. And so that's 100% the biggest one for a start, is just not being able to reach the people we want to help, and often getting frustrated by that feeling of like, all I want to do is help people, and that's probably a big reason why I sort of opened Mamba. I actually seen a lot of my friends' gyms shut down, they'd go out of business, and it was just for that same reason. They just couldn't get to enough people to see that what they were doing was life-changing. And so I guess in terms of what we do in Mamba, that's why one of our biggest goals is to help amplify the voice of the coach. It's not to fit you into a box. It's not to give you a script and say, hey, follow us exactly. It's like, hey, how can we take what you're doing, teach you how to get your message out there, your unique view on all of this stuff, and then amplify that so that you can attract the people you want to attract.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think that's something that helped me gravitate towards the program as well. When I remember when I started out in Mamba, I was like, this dude's just all about helping. I remember the DM conversations with you, when I joined Inner Circle and stuff like that. Really, really interesting. Just the fact that, and I think a lot of coaches out there, all we really want to do is just help more people, right? And so to amplify, you're correctly saying, we just need to amplify coaches and give them the tools and the opportunity to speak to the people that would actually bounce off them and have the same values as them in coaching too, which is really, really cool. So what do you reckon from a coaching perspective then, and as a business coach, what are actually some of the most important skills and qualities that health and fitness business owners need to actually succeed, and how do you help them develop those skills then?
Yeah, probably the only two you need is maybe three. It's resilience and obsession, and then a student mindset. So resilience, because this stuff's not easy, and it's good that Trent's on here, and Leah, I know your story as well. And you've just heard sort of where I've come from. There's been parts where I've had no choice, and that either makes you or breaks you, to be honest. And the way you sort of look at pressure, is probably going to determine how that pressure affects you. And so, what we're doing is we're doing something that not a lot of people succeed at. It's something that a lot more should succeed at, because if we look at just what I was talking about, amplifying our voice, there's more than enough money to pay for fitness services. $900 billion a year is spent on takeaways. 900 billion. It's something like 40 billion, which is less than 25 times less is spent on fitness. There's more than enough money. But, it's something that's very, very difficult to do. So having that resilience to continuously show up and probably, I guess, I'm not sure of the word, but just that ability to say, hey, look, I may not be that good at this right now, but I can learn it, and I'm going to learn it. And that's where that obsession comes in. And I was walking around West End this morning. I ran into Peter Brown, which is cool. He's like, bro, you never stop, do you? And I was like, nah, man, I'm just obsessed. And like, I think, when we have a business or when we have a career, when you're interested, it's a hobby, and if you want to have the impact, if you want to have, a great lifestyle, you do have to be obsessed, because, getting up and always wanting to improve is something that a lot of people aspire to. And it's something that, like, I've found it easier over time to be like, hey, shit, I am in that role of the role model where people look up to me and they're inspired by what I do. But it's like when they see people who are obsessed, they're the people that change the world. And, you look at, I love the example of Kobe. He was obsessed, and the stuff that he done in his career. And then anyone that's done anything has always been obsessed, and it just shows. And so continuously doing that, but also, I guess, having the ability to understand what is road in front of you, like a roadblock, and it's always a fear, and having the ability to say, hey, I see you, I'm going to look you dead in the fucking eye, and then we're going to tackle this thing head on, is extremely important. And if you can do that, the strategies are there, the coaching's there. It's just a matter of showing up every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you touched on a few things there around like resilience, obsession, like being a student. So let's have a chat about maybe a couple of the students, right, in Mamba. Mm-hmm. Talk us through a time where you've really seen someone blossom as a student and really helped grow their business in a way that gets them to lead a bit of a legacy that they want to leave behind for themselves and their family.
Yeah, cool. So I guess one of our first ever members, there's a guy who would send me a message at about 4 a.m. like, hey, bro, what do you think of this DM? And then till about 2 a.m. he'd send me these messages, and, and it continuously send these messages every single day, and he'd be asking questions, and it'd be constantly just showing up and saying, how can I do this? How can I do that? And it was just that relentless obsession. And, we all know the story now of the man himself, Trent, who's essentially built himself a pretty big empire. He sent me a message this morning at about, I think, or it might have been yesterday. It was like 10 a.m. This morning he's having a coffee. He's like, this shit's hard, man. And so he's earned that right. And then also yourself, Leah, and it was also, I'll come back to you, Leah, in a second, but also to our good mate, Emma, who was part of Mamba. And when I got on a call with her, she's like, you know what, Dylan, I'll do everything you say. I'm a hustler. I'm just here to hustle. I'm here to go hard. And I remember, like, she's going overseas now, so she's taking a bit of a break. But I said, thanks for living up to the hype. Thanks for living up to who you said you would be, because you've done it. You've gone and created this. And yesterday she celebrated the first birthday in her business, and she's stoked because she sent me a message. She's like, if it wasn't for you guys, I would have quit. And I was like, yes, you may have, but you've also got that hustler's spirit. You've got what it takes to actually grow. You just needed the tools, which was pretty cool.
That's epic. That's epic. I think like a lot about the business coaching space and the things that you provide is just giving us coaches the ability to bounce ideas off you, but then just ensuring that we have that relentless attitude, I guess. And what I want to touch on now is, what do you think the actual common traits are of those that have succeeded in Mamba? Like, for anyone out there that's watching this, and also our current students in Mamba, if there's something that they can take away from today's podcast is, what traits do they need to start to live up to, and how can they get there?
Yeah, cool. I think the first one is just a bit of passion, eh? You got to love it. Like anyone, there's not too many people I've seen succeed if they're just in it for the money. They'll come in, they're like, shit, I just want to make heaps of money. I haven't actually seen anyone succeed too well there. And it's like, I'm not saying that, like, we all want to make more money so that we can have a better life, we can invest in more stuff. So no doubt we're all here to make more money. But, if it doesn't come with that passion and that care and that empathy and that love for the people who are paying us to help them have a better life, there's no success. There's no success. And I think the other thing too is the ability to be a bit vulnerable and, share a bit of themselves on social media. And so one of the things is, if we're being honest, fitness is a commodity. Like you can go on the AI and say, make me a workout, and it will make you a shitty workout, but it will make you a workout. One of the big things is though, and this is why I know AI is not going to take our jobs, is because people have had this for decades. You've been able to go to a magazine, you've been able to go to a YouTube, you've been able to go everywhere and ask for information on how to get fit and healthy. The world gets less and less healthy, and it's because they don't have a coach, and so that's why we will always have a job, but it takes that ability to show who you are as a real human, which is something an AI can never do. And it also takes that little bit of empathy to understand someone on the journey that's going to help them over the line. And, as online coaches, the ability to show that through our content, that's all we need. That's all we need.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. There's definitely that disconnect with AI, right? Because it's definitely a trending theme that we start to lean on it and use it. And anyone that doesn't have a coach can do exactly the same, right? At the end of the day. What have you been working on in the space of marketing then, Dylan? Like, how do you actually stay up to date with what's actually trending? Because even when I look at it from my own perspective, being on the coaching panel with Mamba, I'm always quite intrigued, like, how does Dylan actually come up with this stuff, right? And then how do we implement it? So I'd love for you to share, like, how do you keep up to date? Like, are you doing any extra learning at the moment? What does that actually look like?
Yeah, well, I guess, and probably one of the greatest books I ever read was Principles by Ray Dalio. And so I sort of joke around saying that's the best strength and conditioning book I've ever read, because it taught me to rely on principles rather than tactics. And so one of the big things, especially with marketing, strength and conditioning, coaching, whatever it is, if you have a set of principles, that will always guide you. And so it's quite easy to see once you see it. And Seth Godin says this in his book, This is Marketing. He's like, once you see it, it cannot be unseen. And that's essentially that marketing is everywhere. And it's like, the cool thing about it is, like, when you understand that, hey, look, everything is marketing, no matter what you're doing, everything is marketing. It's just got to come back to those core principles. How can I connect with someone? How can I prove to them that what I do works for someone similar to them? And how can I help people in advance with a little bit of content? And then from there, it's almost limitless, and that's the cool thing. And that's what I really love. That's why I nerd out on a lot of different stuff, is because, like, I understand the underlying principle. So, okay, cool. That's quite an interesting way to do it. How can I plug that on? But look, I'm sitting beside a book now called Marketing Made Simple. I probably read every single day. I've studied a lot of courses. Probably my biggest influences in the last probably 18 months to 24 months would be Alex Catoni of the Copy Posse. Digital Marketer of the Year, absolutely brilliant. And being able to take her stuff and then digest it and turn it into fitness content has been a game changer. And then also Chris Do, in terms of his influence, stuff around branding. And what we're starting to realize now, and this is why we, in Mamba, we're essentially, in a way, I think we're becoming a branding and an authority, builder system, because that's what helps you stand out. If we can help you guys craft your unique message, and then, as I said before, amplify it, we're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It is a lot to do that brand and that messaging and that voice as well. Have you got an example of, like, a student that you've really worked on specifically in the branding and that voice image that has become quite successful then in Mamba, and how did you do it with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably a little bit around, like, Peter Brown as well. So one of the things we sort of took with him is, We sort of broke it down into what are his core messages. So one of his core messages is he wants to really help, I think it's 1,000 kids or 1 million kids live a healthier life through nutrition. And so we broke that back, we took it back, and then we realized a lot of that was driven by him being a fat kid, and so that little message started to repeat over and over and over again throughout his content. And so that little brand of the former fat kid or the no longer fat kid, that essentially became his brand and his voice and messaging around it. And he started to have a lot more people reach out to him.
It's actually really interesting, Dylan, that you talk about that branding and voice. It kind of comes back from potential past trauma, or it might be the experience that has really shaped that individual. And I know that's something that you work on really closely with Mamba coaches out there. But if there's one thing that you could talk to the Mamba coaches about, and anyone watching this podcast right now, is what would you do to start your own brand and image or voice for your own coaching business? What does that look like?
Number one, be unapologetically you. And so working with a brilliant coach at the moment, Shana Lee. And so she sort of came to us and she's like, if I just talk about, she's a vegan bodybuilder or a plant-based bodybuilder and got phenomenal results. Like, I was like, how did you do this? Like, I was intrigued. I was like, you got a fucking good result here. And we looked at her profile, and so it was just very generic, like, oh, I'm a dietitian, I help with this, and there was nothing about plant-based or anything. What we did is we rebranded that, so we took it and turned it into exactly what she did and who she was. And now what we've done is we've taken and just be like, no, this is who I help. She's dialed it down into a niche. Like, I help vegan bodybuilders, I help plant-based athletes put on muscle, and she's just being herself. And so when you do that, is like, most people know who they want to be. And Dom's on this call as well. He knows who he wants to be. Just be you. Just understand that, hey, look, there's 100 people in the world that are going to vibe with that, and it comes back to a great article called, it used to be the 1,000 true fans. Now it's the 100 true fans. And if you've got 100 clients paying you $59 to $100 a week, it's probably more money than most people in the world will ever make, so it's a really cool way. And if you take that and just dial it into exactly who you are, spend a bit of time working on that avatar and niche. A lot of people will just have a very generic avatar. It's like, hey, I help 40 to 50-year-old mums. And it's like, great, that's good. There's a lot of 40 to 50-year-old mums out there. But what makes it about your program that's going to speak to that mum, whether she's a 20-year-old, a 60-year-old, somewhere in between, what is the branding, the messaging, and the way that they think? How can you get inside their heads and nail that?
Yeah, I know that makes total sense as well. I know that that's something that I've been evolving with Mamba as well myself as a coach here. So let's talk about then, like, roadblocks. Like, what do you think is actually holding coaches back from actually just being them true selves? Like you said, be unapologetically you. What do you think the main things are holding coaches back from making a decision to just be themselves on social media so that they can get those 100 true fans?
Yeah, well, I guess like, I've been lucky enough to I don't know my mates anymore. Like, all my mates I grew up with, they're back in our hometown, and like, I don't really care what they think anymore, so it's cool. And so quite a lot of people, and probably the best thing that I got from doing street fundraising or mall fundraising is that you soon realize, like, every single person, you get rejected 100 times a day, you're never going to see those people ever again. Social media, it's even more. The only people that will see you again are actually interested in what you do. So just allowing yourself to one, fail. You're allowed to fail on social media, you're allowed to fail on putting yourself out there. And then just being okay with, like, hey, you may not have this right now, but with reps and practice. And one of our coaches inside of Mamba, Yong, he's like, he was struggling to get content out. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to do 100 days of content. It doesn't matter what it is. And he's up to about day 15 now, and it's slowly improving. He's slowly improving. And so that's the thing, is like, your content is going to be crap, for a start, but it's going to improve with the reps.
Yeah, that's so true. I think Jimmy raised that point quite some time ago on another podcast, was like, if you don't look back at your content and want to bloody vomit in your mouth from 6 months ago,
Yeah.
then you're actually doing it wrong, right? It's like be okay to fail in a sense as well, which is really cool. So what we might do is we're going to wrap things up for you, Dylan, but I've got one really important question, which I know we love to ask at the end of our Mamba podcast, and that is, what would be written on your gravestone if you were to pass away? What do you want to be known for, or what would you be known for?
Why, Leah? Every time I ask this question, I'm like, I hope no one ever asks me.
The tables have turned. Difficult.
Yeah. No, I've known this for a long time. It's just, I lived a life worth living. And I think, knowing, because that's all I'm trying to do, and like every day, like at the moment, like everybody that knows me closely is like, how the fuck are you doing what you're doing? And they're like, look after yourself, be careful, all of this stuff. But they don't get the way I think, and so and I'm starting to realize I'm not normal. I'm not a normal person. And so, but one thing that sort of is just that, like, when I die, I just want to know I lived a life worth living. And I think in terms of the gravestone of this career, if it was to ever end, I just want to know that, if I helped one of my mates, which is our students here in Mamba, or any of my mates, not go out of business because of what we're doing, and they were able to help one more person, I can sleep at night and I can die a happy man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I really love that. That's cool. Thanks, Dylan. Really appreciate your time today on our podcast. For all of you guys out there, don't forget to drop us a quick like or a reshare for our podcast, and have an epic Friday, everyone. We'll chat to you soon.
See you guys.